The Intercontinental Group is one of the biggest hotel companies in the world. It has nearly 900,000 rooms in more than 100 countries, with brands like Holiday Inn, Crowne Plaza, and of course, the Intercontinental. The Holiday Inn in Nashville hosted icons like Bob Dylan and Prince. Martin Luther King Jr. put the finishing touches on his I Have a Dream speech at the Willard Intercontinental Hotel in Washington, D.C. Today on Leaders with Lacqua, we meet Keith Barr, the Chief Executive of IHG. Keith Barr, thank you so much for joining us right here on Leaders with Lacqua. So you have 17 intercontinental brands, from mid-scale to luxury. Do you ever think you're too big, you're too vast?
Well, it's a question I often get asked. We have 5,600 hotels around the world in 100 countries and territories, and another almost 2,000 in development. But we think there's huge opportunity for growth because the demand for travel continues to grow around the world across all the different segments of customers, from mainstream customers staying in Holiday Inn Expresses to customers looking for that luxury escape staying in Six Senses or an Intercontinental. So I think there's always opportunity for us to continue to grow around the world. So
does it mean that you're hedged depending on the economy because you have, lower scale, mid-scale and luxury?
That's the great thing about our business and our model, in fact, is that we have a variety of brands across all the different segments. And so consumers trade up and trade down. And so if there are economic challenges, we often see that mainstream part of our business do exceptionally well. But in general, tourism and travel continues to grow. We even saw it during the financial crisis. Leisure travel continued to grow because people have that inherent want, that need, that desire to experience things too. So it's an amazing industry to be in because we touch so many people's lives around the world every single day.
So because you're a franchise or you're a franchise model, does it mean that you have to grow because that's how you make money? And how do you choose the partners that actually hold your franchises?
It's a great business model in the fact that 5,600 hotels, but we only own a handful. And we work with small business owners in the U.S. I was there recently and talking to a few thousand of them, and they own one or two hotels. And they were building a Holiday Inn Express or a Staybridge Suites out in rural United States. Or I was in China recently and talking to big state-owned enterprises, real estate development companies who are doing $500 million, billion-dollar mixed-use development. So we work across the spectrum, which enables us to, again, have a broad portfolio of brands that meet different needs for owners and also for customers.
But how do you keep quality?
Quality is one of the hardest things, but it's one of the most important things for any brand, right? Because consistency of delivery of a great experience is what determines quality. And so we have to make sure we've got great brand standards set up for all of our brands, and they have to continue to evolve as customer needs change and evolve. We have to monitor those on a regular basis and really be proactive, understanding of using data and analytics, seeing where the trends are. What's working really well? What are the leading indicators that might show we have a challenge in one of our brands and so forth? So it's one of the most important things that we focus on.
So when you look at your portfolio, how will it change in the next 5 to 10 years? At the moment, Holiday Inn Express makes up half of your hotels. Will it change in terms of where they are, in terms of the regions, or in terms of the actual hotel brands?
So we've grown our brand portfolio quite significantly in the last couple of years. We've actually added in 5 new brands. And so we've added a few mainstream brands, like Avid Hotels and Atwell Suites, and also Voco Hotels and Upscale. Then we've acquired Six Senses, we've acquired Regent. So we're balancing out the portfolio. And so how it will change, when I talk about our brand portfolio, I always say, I never want to have a customer or an owner have to go work with a competitor. So I want to make sure I have the right brand to meet that customer need and that owner need. And so we'll continue to evolve the portfolio and grow. Clearly our 2 bookends of our business are the US and China. The US is our biggest business, and China is a third of our growth today too. And so we'll look to continue to expand our brand portfolio in those markets and then go else around the world.
But higher end or mid-scale?
Mid-scale is really where you see the main growth, right? Particularly when you think about China today, I think by 2022, the middle class will be 525 million people. So that's significantly more than the entire population of the US. And that's going to be a mainstream traveler. And so we started in China in upper upscale and upscale, but are now growing into that mainstream portfolio and seeing significant growth in that in the US, but also luxury around the world because there is this growing wealth and this desire for experiential travel. And so when we open up hotels in places like Bhutan recently, which are just amazing hotels, once in a lifetime experiences, and talking with owners around the world to build hotels in places like the Galapagos and Iceland and so forth. So, we have hotels for that weekend football school trip for the kids to go to for a tournament, and also those once-in-a-lifetime luxury experiences in tropical destinations and resorts.
Up next, the future of luxury travel. We discuss why customers are looking for that perfect Instagram moment and what hotels are doing to curate those. More with Keith Barr next. The hospitality industry is in a state of change. More and more business is coming from China, and younger customers with cash to splash are looking for the perfect Instagram moment to share from their holidays. And there is, of course, the rise of home-sharing sites like Airbnb. So how does a hotel chain deal with disruptors? Keith Barr is still with me. Keith, what's the next new space for the world traveler, high-end luxury?
Most recent destination we've opened up is in Bhutan. We have first 3 of 5 lodges open up in Bhutan, just an incredible country with this rich history and heritage. So it's an amazing luxury destination, very kind of spiritual and experiential too. So it's a really exciting place.
But how does it suddenly become fashionable?
It's one of those things where it's been on the radar screen for the high-end luxury traveler for a while, but there hasn't been a lot of great high-quality product there. And so by building these unique experiential destinations, these lodges going from place to place, now they're not next to each other. You're talking hours of travel from one to the next and really experiencing nature in a country that has just a wonderful kind of history and culture.
Talk to me, we cover G7s, we cover G20s almost on a monthly basis. Talk to me about the heritage of Intercontinental with the US.
It's an amazing hotel brand, right? It's associated with Pan Am Airlines when it was originally launched. And it was the first true international luxury hotel in key cities around the world. And so we've hosted heads of states, monarchs, U.S. presidential delegations all around the world. And so it's we have a deep, deep tie with governments around the world because they've met there for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
But now your biggest competitor is Airbnb. How do you marry the kind of, the heritage that you have with actually competing against these millennial disruptors?
Airbnb is something that we talk about all the time. And I always say that home sharing has been around as long as hotels. And so it's pre-existed. But what digital technologies have done is remove the friction in customer stay. So they've enabled home sharing to be a much more easy access market. Hasn't had a material impact on the hotel industry overall because a lot of those stays have previously existed because people will stay in a Holiday Inn Express because they're on a short stay. They may then stay in a Crowne Plaza because they have a meeting, but then they have a need to go stay in a home because they want to have a family reunion in a small place. So it's a different stay occasion, so there's a different product.
But would you look at home sharing? Some of your competitors are.
Yeah, we've actually made a conscious decision not to move into home sharing because our belief is that we've got enough growth opportunities in our core business. And I think if you've expended all your growth opportunities in your core, then you can look at businesses that are sort of adjacent to your core. But we don't need to do that right now. We are growing so fast around the world that to me it would be a bit of a distraction.
How is travel changing around the world? And I imagine there's a bigger difference now between the business traveler and actually people that travel for leisure and want that perfect Instagram picture.
Yeah, well, the Instagram moment's an amazing part of it. We even talk about that in our brands, and especially when we get into luxury, we were talking about what are the Instagram moments for this hotel and for this stay, because customers are becoming much more discerning. It's why you're seeing so many more brands come out, is that customers want differentiated stay experiences. They want those unique experiences. They want to be able to share those experiences. On the business traveler side, it's more about efficiency. I mean, we are continually under time pressure around the world as business travelers. And so how can we make that stay seamless? How can we make it frictionless? Just make it easier for you to book with us and to stay with us.
But so do you fabricate like an Instagram corner at some of your luxury hotels?
Some of the luxury, I mean, actually in the design, we've actually talked about what are the moments that customers are going to film. take pictures of, and making sure we're quite clear about
Which is
this.
what, an arch?
It can be anything. So it can be, there was one hotel we were talking about in China where it's got this amazing mountain out in western China. And so we know that customers are going to come through the lobby. You're going to see the mountain in the background with the snowy peak. That's going to be the picture. And so how do we design everything and curate that experience to make sure that it's perfect every single time?
But that's amazing, right? It's really changed then the way that you look at your travelers and your clients in the last, 5 to 6 years?
Yeah, I mean, technology continues to impact us on so many different levels, and really thinking about, because in the past you design a hotel for a great experience overall, and now we're going, well, people are going to be filming this, people are going to be sharing this, because really, you think about it, 10, 15 years ago, we would tell customers what our brand stood for. We had to get our messaging out there. We still do that today, but actually customers define and describe what your brands are today. The amount of impact of social, sharing, peer information and reviews, that shapes who your brand is. And so you have to be thinking about that all the time.
So how much are you spending on technology?
It's actually, we spend more and more every single year. And I say, we're a brand company and becoming more of a technology company all the time, and investing in that, because the way that you have to connect with customers, the way you use data, the way you use analytics, it enables you to deliver a more personalized experience. And so you continue to invest more in that because that's what customers expect and demand today.
I mean, are data breaches, one of your biggest nightmares?
Unfortunately, if you are a business today that has customer data, whether it's nation-state activity or whether it's illegal activity in cyber, it's one of the big concerns. And so we're continually working with governments, working to increase our investment in cybersecurity to make sure that we're out in front as best we possibly can to kind of prevent that illegal activity from happening, and also then working with governments when it does happen.
Keith, you were chief executive of Greater China. How will China actually transform the travel industry? Can China be what Route 66 was for the US 70 years ago?
Without question. And I think most people I lived in China for almost 5 years and was there during some of the biggest expansion, and you just have to understand the level of infrastructure that's been created. So high-speed rail is a great example. I think about 2/3 of the world's high-speed rail is in Greater China today. If you took it all and put it end to end, you can go from the top of Africa to the bottom of Africa to the top of Africa, back to the bottom of Africa. So where the US built the interstate system, they've built high-speed rail, and that is connecting all these cities around China and enabling travel to happen at a level that's not been seen before. And so whilst we've seen incredible growth in China in tourism and domestic, we're still at the very beginning of seeing what the growth of that industry would be like.
So your challenge is finding the places where, if it's a rail system, you need to be where the train stops.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that difficult to kind of get, priority instead of local players?
It also depends upon which brand you're thinking of. So, if you're talking about a Holiday Inn Express, you probably want to be close to the rail station. If you're talking about building an Intercontinental resort out in Yunnan, we're going to have transportation there. But it's really understanding how China is growing. You've got the Belt and Road Initiative. You've got things happening out in Western China, because you've really seen kind of Eastern China, Beijing, Shanghai grow pretty significantly. Now you're seeing Southern China and kind of the Guangdong, Guangzhou area in Western China grow, and huge potential for growth across that area.
But is a Chinese traveler different to the Western traveler? Do they want more history? What do they, how do they differ?
They are changing so quickly. I think what's interesting in China is the fact that they are so technology forward versus the West. And again, many people don't understand that. I'll give you a great story about that. So when I lived in China, you'd keep a bunch of RMB, you'd keep a bunch of cash, because it's a very cash-based society. Now this is 11 years ago. I had a mate of mine go there the other day and was walking out to a coffee cart, and the coffee vendor would only take digital payment. So it's moved from a cash society to a mobile digital payment society in under a decade, more so than anywhere else in the world. So it's understanding how you have to leverage technology in China for China, because they are so progressive.
But are they loyal to a brand?
I think they're building loyalty, and that's the thing. It's early days we've been in China since 1984, and so we're the largest international operator in China, so we're fortunate to have those deep connections with the Chinese customer. But they do have very high expectations about quality, about consistency, and about being relevant, and it's not about just taking a US brand or a global brand and dropping into China as is. It's what does it mean to be relevant to that consumer in terms of the customer experience? What does that mean in terms of the food and beverage offering, the service offering, design?
What do you prioritize?
What do you prioritize? I think it's about really understanding how the space is used. We, at one point, when I went to China first and I walked into a hotel and everyone was saying, oh, this is an amazing hotel. And I said, you realize it's not designed properly for the Chinese customer. That the lobby wasn't set up appropriately, it had bad feng shui, it didn't have the right restaurant mix, so it was very much from the Western mentality. And it was there was somebody sitting in Los Angeles to design a great hotel and dropped it into Shanghai, versus saying, what does that customer want? So really understanding design, and I think the Chinese customers today are even more design forward than other parts of the world.
You have 2 great hotels in Shanghai. Are they kind of like, flagships so that people know the brand? One, it has a lot of history, and then they want to go to other hotels? Or how do you see these kind of, I don't know whether you want to call them jewels or showcases? Yeah,
they're stunning hotels, and they're so different. You have the Intercontinental Shanghai, which was a state guest house, and it was one of the first state guest houses converted to an international hotel brand. Incredible history and heritage there.
So 1930s?
1930s in Puxi, in Shanghai. You've had heads of state stay there. You've had just so much of Chinese kind of history take place in that hotel. So it's an iconic hotel. Outside of Shanghai, we've just opened up our 200th Intercontinental around the world, the Shanghai Wonderland. It's built into a side of a quarry. I mean, architecturally just stunning, and the engineering feat there. And so you've kind of got, this incredible 1930s historic hotel in the center of Shanghai, and this kind of iconic new architectural engineering feat. And their destinations. I mean, people want to come to these hotels to see them and experience them.
Up next, making the hotel business sustainable, starting with getting rid of plastic toiletries. We'll talk Intercontinental's big push on the environment. Keith Barr has made sustainability a focus at IHG. The group announced it's getting rid of those tiny plastic toiletries from its rooms and has committed to lowering its carbon footprint. But can holidays and business travel ever truly be green? Keith Barr is still with us. What does it mean being a leader in 2019?
I am always focusing on what role do I play in setting the culture for the company. And I was really struck by something earlier in my career. Someone said to me, people hear what you say, but they see what you do. So every single day, people are looking to me as a leader to see, what am I doing? How am I setting the tone for the culture for this business? And I think the bar continues to get raised about responsible leadership and what our colleagues expect from me as a leader, from us as a company. And that's about diversity and inclusion. It's about sustainability. It's about how we engage with our colleagues and our customers. Mm-hmm. And so you're out front and center every single day setting the tone of the culture for the company.
But how do you do it concretely? Is it meeting staff? Is it hiring, a diverse group around you? How do you set the agenda on sustainability?
Well, I think it's about, honestly, you have to lead from the front, so you have to be out there and talking to your colleagues. And interesting in sustainability, I think today, many governments around the world are failing to keep pace with what's needed. They're distracted by other things that we all know about. And our colleagues and customers are looking for us as leaders in business to make a difference. They're not expecting us to sit and wait for governments to tell us what to do, saying, what are you doing today to make us a better company in terms of sustainability? And so having less impact on the environment, reducing carbon footprint, reducing waste, and giving back to our communities. And to be a great company today, you have to do all of those things and do more every single year.
But who notices? Employees, shareholders, or customers?
Every one of the constituents today. I was struck. I was recently going to shareholder meetings, and the whole conversation around sustainability came up in 3 different shareholder meetings. What are you doing about it? Making sure that they can say that they're investing in a company that is making a real difference in impacting climate change and making impact in the environment. And it's little things, right? It's not just about plastic straws. It's about thinking about the entirety of your supply chain of how can you limit waste, how can you reduce plastic. It's moving away from single-use bath amenities to bulk. It's all those things, looking at how you build hotels today, saying, are we building with sustainable materials? As we're renovating hotels, how can we recycle those aspects and give them back to communities? It's things that 10 years ago we really weren't focusing on as an industry, and we're now having to look at every aspect of the hotel life cycle, from building it to operating it to renovating it, and making sure we're doing it in a responsible way.
What kind of leader are you, micromanager or overview?
I have my moments of micromanagement. I had a bit of advice once who said, as chief executive, you need to make sure you're doing the things that only you can do. Because there's always going to be things that you want to do or know how to do, and making sure that you don't pull yourself in that direction. Because I've been in the industry for 30 years. I know the plumbing and the wiring of this company better than anyone else because I've worked all around the world. So inherently, I have a desire sometimes to get into the detail. I have to pull myself back and saying, how do I add value here? How do I help the team achieve what they want, and really give them the guidance they need? And oftentimes, it is just staying out of the way, and it's letting them kind of feel their way through it, and give them a bit of advice and direction too. And so I do lean in when I need to, but I do try to sit back and make sure that I'm thinking longer term for this business, about the people agenda, about the strategic agenda, and making sure that I'm not missing those opportunities by being too bogged down in the details.
Did you always want to work in hotels?
I started working in the industry when I was 13 years old. My first job was a dishwasher. I think I'm living proof about this great industry. I mean, I worked full-time through university as cooking and became a chef.
What did you like about it?
I love the energy. I love the connection. I like serving people. It's an amazing business when you think about it. We have 400,000 colleagues around the world, touching millions of people's lives every single day. And that can be on your really important business trip, or a family reunion, or helping families during a natural disaster when they've had to relocate to hotels. We make a real difference in society, and it's amazing experiences. Every single day I get letters from people saying the special things one of our colleagues did somewhere in the world. Sometimes it's really small, sometimes it's really big, but it's a business where you're making things better, and that's a great way to come to work every day and feel good about it.
What if you get customer complaints? You must get those too.
I do get customer complaints, and I want to make sure that we listen. And that's the thing too. And so it's really understanding two things. One is, how do we recover with that customer? But what do we learn? Where did this break down? Because sometimes it's a great insight of, we haven't done something right as a company, and it's not just that one customer. It might be a bit more systemic. And how do we react to that too? So I get them every day, honestly, and I read them and I react to them, but I also, more importantly, I reflect upon them and saying, how do we become a better company to deliver better experiences? Because people are staying with us because they trust us, they trust our brands, and we want to make sure we deliver and maintain that trust.
Where do you stay when you travel?
I stay across our hotel brands. It depends upon what I'm doing. So it can be at a Holiday Inn, honestly, when I'm doing something in one market. It can be in an Intercontinental, depending on what I'm doing. So I do stay across the brand portfolio. And it's great, dude, because everyone is a bit different experience. I have two daughters, and they love traveling with me, and they always love checking into one of the hotels and just having those unique moments and engaging with the staff.
Do you have a favorite hotel?
That's like asking if I have a favorite child. But what I love about our hotel brands is the history and the heritage. So you think about the Willard in Washington, D.C., the Intercontinental, built in the 1850s, has hosted almost every president of the United States since then. And you had Abraham Lincoln there the night before his inauguration, borrowing slippers. You had Martin Luther King writing I Have a Dream, finishing his speech there. So you've got this wonderful history, and when you go to those hotels, the Holiday in Nashville, you had early in their careers, Bob Dylan and Prince and Britney Spears stay there. So I love the stories that our hotels have around them, because it shows you how connected we are in society through travel and staying in hotels.
Keith Barr, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.